All right, so math. All right. We're studying, or this year, in our theme this year, we've got Ephesians 2:19 for our student body. But as teachers, what we've been talking about and dialoguing with one another is this truth, goodness, and beauty. Okay? Truth being not relative truth, but absolute truth, that God is truth. Okay? And goodness and developing the purpose that we are created for, and that is to bring Him glory, right? And then things that are beautiful. Okay? So that's in math, too. They learn some sound off in grades 4, 5, and 6, and they learn these memory things. And the first one starts out with, in mathematics, we catch glimpses of, can anybody tell me the rest of it? God's unchanging character, order, and logic. And that's where they start, okay? And that's what we hope, is that they see God in the midst of that. I know Miss Reynolds said that they may not love it, but we hope that they'll see God in it, and they'll see God's beauty in it, okay? So, K3, K4, they have a program that is very project-based. It's very hands-on. We're just introducing some principles. The actual book is called Math in Art. That's what it is. So they're going to do a lot of that. There's not going to be a lot of stuff going home, but we're hoping that they're going to learn how to count 1 to 10. There's a whole little list of things that we're hoping that they're going to come away with, and that they just interact with math and those principles. They're going to think about things in order. They're going to see patterns, those kind of things. So it's a lot of hands-on. K5 starts with Saxon 1. That's what we're doing in our K5. Our 1, 2 are doing together. They're doing a modified with the first grade, but they're doing classical math 2. We started classical math 2 4 years ago. Has it been 4 years when you started, Derica? 3 years, okay. And then the next one does classical math 3. And unfortunately, they made those 2 levels, and that's it. So I've already told them, if you guys would hurry up and write another one, we'll get the next one. So right now, we're going to stick with our Course 1 for 4th grade, Course 2 for 5th grade, and Course 3. And those are all Saxon-based. And they're cyclical. They're done in... you'll get this principle, and then it'll come back to that principle again, and then it'll come back to that principle again. And the way that they lay things out, it's not great to break it apart and say we're just going to learn this idea of math, because of the way that the book's laid out. They keep giving them that same review. So rather than take it apart where, if you give them a test and they're like, oh, we didn't study that yet, we're keeping it together, but we've modified it. We've looked at what are those things that they really need to have, that we need to make sure they're teaching. The good thing is, every single one of our teachers who are teaching math love to teach math. So that's a good thing. So they're going to communicate that love. 6th grade has a lot of introductory pre-algebra, but 7th grade we're using something new called College of the Redwoods. Write that down, College of the Redwoods. If you want the teacher book, it's free and it's online. College of the Redwoods. Even the answers, but let me encourage you not to give answers to Johnny or Sarah, have them work through those, okay? But it is completely online and it's free if you want that, okay? So they have College of the Redwoods in 7th grade pre-algebra. And then from 8th to 12th, we start our Algebra 1 and we have our high school track, okay? And this year, they're taking pre-calc. The seniors are taking pre-calc, so that's what we're taking them through this year. Some of you, I know, don't love math, or it's a little bit a challenge. Let me just encourage you to be in communication with your teachers, okay? They want to help. A lot of them are willing to work with your students for some time after school, but just communicate with them if you have some needs, okay? And I know that we're going to have some questions about math later, but that's just big picture, okay? And I want to leave you with this quote. C.S. Lewis said, "The world does not need more Christian literature. What it needs is more Christians writing good literature." And I would say the same thing is applicable in math. We need some Christian engineers, right? Some Christian mathematicians. So, hopefully we're building some of that here. You did say, I'm going to do it again. Omnibus. Okay, I'm shifting gears in Omnibus. Logic, rhetoric, families. Mortimer Adler wrote a book, How to Read a Book. So, our kids don't read this in class, But if you're looking for some resource about how to help your kids read a book and what sort of principles and ideas, it's very practical. I'm going to encourage that if you're looking for that resource. The omnibus is our spine for our high school literature, okay? It's laid out and it has three main parts to it. It has a text analysis, which is sort of like the grammar of that literature. It asks them who said this, who did this. It's very straightforward. It's the grammar part of it. It asks them characters. It asks them about the plot, so it's straightforward. And then they have another section called cultural analysis. And that's when we talk about, so what does the world think about these kinds of things? And those are great discussions. And I hope that they'll take home and have those discussions with you. And then we finally come up with the biblical analysis. Okay, we know what this book is about. We kind of figured out the theme. This is what the world says about it, but what does God say about it? And so we're taking them back to that biblical worldview. So you'll see a lot of, or you'll hear a lot about Socratic discussions. I'm hoping your Socratic discussions takes place over your dinner table, in the car. We're going to discuss some things like heroism. What is a real hero this year in the upper level for their ancients, because there's a lot of ancient works that we talk about heroes. We're going to talk about laws and government. Hammurabi had a whole bunch of great laws, and so the crime fit the punishment. So if you were stealing, cut your hand off. So we're going to talk about Hammurabi's laws, and then we're going to look at the biblical laws. And most kids will say, yes, we should have those biblical laws. So then you tell them, did you know that there's one in the Old Testament that says if a kid is mean to their parents, they're supposed to be taken outside the camp and being stoned? And they're like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Let me think about that one again. So some of those conversations are going to be taking place. And so we want them to think deeper. The books aren't always easy. It's okay to have some reading out loud. It's okay to have some audio books. But I want to encourage you to have both of those. It's kind of like what I was saying about using all those parts of the brain. So don't just settle for put the audio on. Have them read some of those things to you. We're going to be reading in class. We're going to be discussing in class. Then we'll take those tools and we'll put some of those things in writing. She talked about the lost tools of writing with persuasive bent to it. So IEW does give you that foundation for writing, and then we take it to the next level where they're going to defend why they believe what they believe. Towards the end of last year, when we talked about some other heroes, we got into this conversation in the juniors, and they said, well, I sort of believe this. And the other one said, well, I sort of believe this. And they were going back and forth, and I said, that's okay. It wasn't a moral issue on this. It was something that they came up with, that they had some different stances or different ideas. I said, but can you defend that? Can you use quality resources for that? So I'm encouraging them, go back to the Word of God. Go back to good sources, not your memes, not your social media. Go back to those good sources. So that's what we're trying to do when we're doing Omnibus. And in the Mortimer Adler, the one who wrote this book, he said, in the case of good books, the point is not to see how many of them you can get through, but rather how many can get through you. And that's what we're trying to do. Will this change me so that I come to know the Lord more, but I walk more like Him? Okay? So we don't read every single book that's in the omnibus. There are somewhere in the neighborhood of 36 to 40 books in there. That's unrealistic for us. So we don't let the curriculum drive us. We drive the curriculum. So we have about, in the upper level, I think, what have you got, 15 books? And that's probably what we've got in the 11th and 12th grade. So yes, it's still stringent, and they still should expect to read or do some interaction with that homework every day. Every day. I told my kids, this is worth 3 credits of high school. You're probably going to have to count on about an hour a day. You're going to need to either read or write or have some preparation of some sort. So do that. Right now, we started today. 10th, 11th, and 12th grade are reading Don't Waste Your Life by John Piper. And the 9th grade is reading Classical Me, Classical Thee. I cannot recommend that book enough for you if you haven't read that. It's free on Kindle, right? Didn't somebody tell me it was free on Kindle? Classical Me, Classical Thee. And this one's for students to say, why do I have to learn Latin? Why do I have to do classical education? So it might answer some questions and give you some ways to have some conversations with your students.